and welcome back to ADK Talks, the podcast from adktaste.com, your curated guide to the best places, people, food, and experiences in the Adirondacks. Every episode, we introduce you to the people and places that make this region such a special place to visit, live, and explore. You know, when most people think about summer in the Adirondacks, they think hiking trails, lakes, boating, concerts, and campfires. But in Schroon Lake, there's another tradition that's become a summer favorite: Classic Movie Mondays at the Strand Theater.
The Strand has been showing movies for more than a century, and this summer's lineup includes everything from Hollywood classics to guest speakers with deep ties to the film industry. The series begins with something especially unique: a silent film accompanied live by one of the nation's leading silent film accompanists, historian and performer Ben Modell. Joining us today are Liz McNamara of the Strand Theater and Ben Modell, who has spent decades introducing audiences around the country to the magic of silent film. And if you're thinking, I'm not sure silent films are for me, stick around. By the end of this conversation, you might be planning a Monday night in Schroon Lake.
Liz and Ben, welcome to ADK Talks.
Thanks for having me.
You know what, Liz, I'm just going to start with you. For someone who's never been to Schroon Lake, describe what the Strand Theater is.
The Strand is a movie theater that's been in Schroon Lake and operating for over 100 years. It has a single screen and it holds well over 200 people. It's got an Art Deco motif to it, and it's something in the summer that runs every night with current movies and also classic movies.
How did your family become involved with the Strand?
My husband, Larry McNamara, and I are the ones that are running it, and Larry is really the person who became entranced with the theater. We met the prior owners, and they were willing to sell. Larry has worked in the high-end audio and stereo and video business his whole life. So when we had an opportunity to go with our love to the movies and set up a theater, we jumped on it. Also, we're longtime residents of Schroon Lake itself. We've loved it. Larry has vacation there with his parents even before he was born.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's our community. It's a place we love, and then a place where we could open a business using the skills and talents that he has to really make a difference.
A perfect fit. And it's a really pretty Art Deco, very well preserved theater. It's really amazing. You know, in a world of streaming services and mega multiplexes, why do you think people still love going to the movies in a small town at a place like the Strand?
Our theater is all about the community. We knew that when we took it over from the prior owners. It was strong, and you could see that people love to go there. And the difference is that they come together, see each other, enjoy each other's company, and come in to see movies on a big screen, and I will boast a little, with an incredible sound system. That's my husband's passion, and he has upgraded it several times thanks to our community support and grants. We've upgraded our screen and the rest of our equipment. So when you come to the Strand, if you want to see something like Godzilla, you're going to be rattled in your seat from the sound system. Or if you want to see something like what Ben is doing with a wonderful screenshot of it, you've got a great picture and your friends and family are right there with you. We often have people after the movie who stop outside on our front porch and just talk for another 20 or 30 minutes. And that's the part we love.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. You know, we said at the top, we mentioned that in July and August, you host Classic Movie Mondays. Tell us a little bit about how that started and what it is.
We actually started with Ben. It's been 8 or 9 years ago, and another person, Jeremy Arnold, and working with Adirondack Film, and now with the Adirondack Lake Center for the Arts, who sponsor our programs. We expanded from 2 to 7 Mondays, where we ask local folks who have been working in the movie industry or have some connections to it to pick a film that they would like to share with our audience, come in, say a few words about it, and screen it. So it's really thanks to Ben and the original programs, we made a decision to expand it to 7 programs, and with the help of our grant funders, able to do that.
This year, I know you're kicking off the series with Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush, which was, it's a 101-year-old film. I guess it came out in 1925. What's sort of the format of the evening? What should people expect?
We start at our normal time at 8 o'clock, just like every movie. But Ben will say some things about the movie. One of the things, Ben, I don't want to steal your thunder, but one of the things he often points out with our silent films is these are films that probably were shown in the Strand 100 years ago, so which is a very cool feeling. Then Ben has a piano all set up ready to accompany the movie. The movie will screen and he will play along with it, and then afterwards he'll answer questions from the audience. We usually have a pretty lively discussion afterwards. One of the things we love is Ben will talk, I'm sure, more about this, the restored movies that are silent that maybe we only saw as children in between cartoons or a little snippet. We see the whole film as it was meant to be shown on a big screen in a real theater with the real music that belongs with it.
Let's talk about that, Ben, a little bit. Before we get into the programming, I'm really interested in, how you become fascinated with silent movies or get into this line of work that you're in. Most people, dream to be an astronaut or,
well, that was my fallback.
Entrepreneur.
That was your fault.
If the silent film thing doesn't work out, I could always be a plumber or an accountant.
There you go.
Was it a particular film that inspired you or what motivated you to go this direction?
I'm not really sure. It goes so far back, I don't really have a memory of it. But as Liz was mentioning, these films used to be shown on television and from the start of television in the 50s and the 60s and 70s. And once cable came in, it changed everything. But it was not hard to find silent comedy film on television back when you only had 4 or 5 or 6 channels. They were either shown on public television or sold in packages, TV shows that had music and narration added, like Who's the Funny Mans and stuff like that. So they were findable. And my mom says I discovered Charlie Chaplin on TV when I was a toddler. And the flip side of that, I've always told that story, and I thought to myself, my mom is, new mom. I was her firstborn, and it's 1963, 64, and there's a TV in the apartment. My dad's off at work or school, but the idea, I'll let him watch this. I don't know what else was on. I'm sure there was other things on television, but the idea, it's okay with me if he watches Charlie Chaplin. Oh my gosh, all this hitting. We can't. Of course, people in kids programming say worse things to each other. But so it's almost primal that it goes back that far, and I continued along with my interest in music and filmmaking to pursue my interest in seeing more silent film whenever I could. I started accompanying silent films while I was at film school at NYU. And that was just something I think I secretly always wanted to try. And the department was behind me. The films were being shown in dead silence. So I figured, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's got to be better than nothing. And I started, and I met a couple of people in New York City who were accompanying films, one of whom was a guy named Lee Irwin, who had been a movie organist in the 1920s, and William Perry, who was MoMA's film accompanist starting in 1969, and who, for anyone listening who ever saw a television program in the 70s called The Silent Years on public television, the piano scores were by Bill Perry, who is still around. I stay in touch with him. But nobody deliberately goes into a silent film accompaniment as a career, but it's something I was doing while trying to build up some kind of a career as an independent comedy filmmaker or improv and sketch and stand-up performer. And at a certain point, I decided to lean into the silent film thing because it was something that I noticed it's just going to sound weird, but it's the one thing I could get hired for. I was tuning pianos for a bunch of years, and the last gig I had, I was the tuner for the Fantastics when it reopened, and I got too busy to come in every week to replace bass strings that would break on a regular basis with that show because of film accompaniment work. So really about 25 years ago or so, I just leaned in that direction, and it has very slowly snowballed into what I do. And I know the history of my playing at the Strand. I had no idea that my reaching out to Larry in September of 2005 would lead to something like this. But I'm so pleased that not only that it's happened, but it proves that there is an audience for classic film outside of big cities. And I think the big part of that, like Liz also said, is that you're seeing it, and not only are you seeing it in a vintage movie theater, but it's the sense of community. It's not just the fact that it's a big screen. You know, we now live in a time when lots of people have big screens and good sound systems in their house, and you can have a few friends over, but seeing, you know, the big slogan for the last few years has been see it on the big screen or see it big. And it's only because see it with other people doesn't have the same snap to it. But that's really the difference. You can sense that you're part of a community of people. And like Liz said, there are people who will continue chatting after the film in the lobby or beforehand.
It's special.
Yeah, silent film, presenting it and accompanying it and getting it out to people on home video or theatrically seems like it's something I'm supposed to be doing. And so I'm following in that.
Yeah, you know, when you're describing that, it's proof yet again that if you're really passionate about something, you can turn it into your life's work. So that's amazing. I want to make sure that our listeners understand that you're not simply, you know, pressing play on a soundtrack. You're actually playing music. And when I first was sort of doing my background work for this episode, I was like, I don't think the Strand has an organ. What does he do? And I was fascinated by your, I don't want to give it away. I want you to describe it, but how you accompany these films. Can you just talk about that?
Well, basically, if it's a film I'm playing that I don't know, I'll watch it ahead of time once and make some notes so that I don't get surprised the next time I see it during the show. If there are sudden shifts in mood or location or something like that, certain points where certain leitmotifs or themes might be used, a main theme, a love theme, and stuff like that. I don't overuse the themes, which is sort of a stereotype of what people think silent movie music is, which may have been the case in the 20s, but today, for a contemporary audience, I don't want to beat the themes into the ground the way you for those people who know what Peter and the Wolf is, and you'd be surprised how many young people have no idea what that is, but the idea that anytime somebody shows up, you play their theme. Well, I guess Star Wars, and the Harry Potter films, they all have their themes. So I'll work out some themes ahead of time, but there are some films that I just know really, really well. They're old friends of mine. And so I don't need to review them. And sometimes I'll have themes worked out during ahead of time. Sometimes I'll forget to do that. And then during the show, the theme will, as I put it, come out of my hands. And I'll think, oh yeah, there's that theme again. So, actually I'm doing 2 shows up in the Adirondacks, and they're both dear old friends of mine. On Monday, the Monday the 6th, I'll be accompanying the Gold Rush at the Strand Theater. And then the next day in Tupper Lake at the Adirondack State Theater, I'll be accompanying Buster Keaton and Steamboat Bill Jr. And that's that theater that's a 1914 movie house. And that's something that has now, we piggyback this onto my coming up to the Strand. It's another historic theater. And, last year, my first year there, we ran Charlie Chaplin comedies made in 1916 and 17. And because the movie theater itself had been open in 1914, like Liz said, I told the audience, you're sitting where people sat and probably saw these films in Tupper Lake, when they were in release. Those two, Steamboat Bill Jr. and the Gold Rush are old friends. And the fun thing for me more recently is that, getting to accompany the Gold Rush. I had had not had an opportunity to do so for many years. And I had a couple of shows of the film in April. And sometimes, because I improvise, the score is improvised. It's created during the show. And this is one of the ways films were accompanied. If you were a soloist and could improvise, that's the way you worked. And Lee Irwin was an improviser. I learned this tradition from him. And I went into that first show, The Gold Rush. Actually, I hadn't bothered to review it. And sure enough, shot for shot, beat by beat, I knew every bit of the film and was able to match what I was doing in support of Chaplin's film. So, because I think for a lot of people, The Gold Rush is something we've all seen, haven't seen it in a really long time, but because it used to be on television a lot. So there's a couple of things I'm thinking of. So number one is I'm watching the film. I'm keeping in mind the story, what's happened up to this point in the story, what's coming up. I'm also keeping in mind when it's relevant, the style or point of view of the director. So Keaton has his own sensibility in terms of humor and story. Chaplin has his, as is the case with Harold Lloyd, Laurel and Hardy, Doug Fairbanks, Eisenstein, and on and on. And so when I am finding ways musically to support some of the actions, I know what that helps me make my choices. So Chaplin, for instance, has I think almost all of his films has at least one sequence where he's sitting at a table with somebody and they're eating, and there's just satire on table manners and indigestion. And from knowing his own music and sensibilities, I'll play something that's very dainty under this because it's meant to be a satire. So this is something where knowing the personality of the auteur informs me. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm listening to the audience, especially with a comedy. There's more to hear, but I can sense, like most of us accompanists, we develop this extra sense that we can feel the vibe in the room while we're playing, and whether the audience needs a little help connecting or not, or you can usually tell a couple minutes into the film, oh, the spark has been lit, they're engaged, they're in that magical dream trance-like state. So I'm also accompanying the audience a little bit, and I'm also keeping in mind who's in the audience. So playing for a dozen college students, as I do for my class at Wesleyan, I'm aware of what their experience and knowledge of silent film is, and they may need a little more help to connect. For an audience of cinephiles, it's different. The film, I don't have to really worry so hard. And then a film like Safety Last with Harold Lloyd, you're practically accompanying the audience the second half when he's climbing the building, because there is no story. It's 30, 35 minutes of him just trying to get up the side of a building, but the audience is reacting. And so I'm keeping that in mind. So the thing about silent film is that despite its name, it's way more fun than you think it's going to be. And it is experiential. I think much more so. It's to a degree that studios are trying to do now with, superhero movies and sound, and what else can we throw into the picture to grab the audience and make sure they don't look at their phones. And a silent film, you can't disengage yourself because you'll miss something.
Right. One of the things I found super fascinating was that how much technology plays a role in what you're doing. You have it. To make sure I understand this right, you really can recreate the sound of that, what it was like to be in a movie theater in those early years. You have a portable organ, but do I understand correctly that you've actually created software to help you replicate that sound?
I bought it. Somebody else created, but I bought it. So what I've been working with for the past 20 years is different softwares, or what are called a virtual instrument, to replicate the sound of the mighty Wurlitzer. Now, just to be clear, at the Strand, we have a beautiful old, I think it's from the 1890s, upright piano that is maintained and tuned. And up at Tupper Lake, at the Adirondack State Theater, they bring in a digital keyboard. And that's what we used last year. So you'll get the sound of a piano, which was not uncommon in the silent era. There were orchestras in many, many theaters of varying sizes, and tons of theaters had these instruments called the theater pipe organ. And it's a little difficult to bring all the equipment on the Amtrak. So I will be using this, but it is another option that I'll use. And there is a Wurlitzer at the Palace Theater in Lakes Placid. It has not been used in several years, and I think maybe 10, 20 years ago, I think when Nelson Page was involved in the festival, a guy named Jeff Barker, who was a theater organist originally from Blackpool, but who I knew would accompany silent films there. So there is an instrument there. It is in need of repair, but the potential to hear that sound there is certainly possible. So the software that I use is called Hauptwerk, and which is just software that hosts the samples. But the idea for me is to bring that sound other places. So I've come up with a portable rig made of a couple of keyboards and MIDI organ pedals and a keyboard stand and a few other bits and bobs that were not meant to do what I'm using them for, but it allows me to throw a few cases in the back of a rental car, load something into the theater, and it takes me 15 minutes, and we plug it into the house sound system, and it sounds like pretty much like we've installed a Wurlitzer. And I do this when I can so that people hear that sound. For many people, the sound of the piano is sort of what is associated with silent movies for many years, and still to this day with home video. It's still a much more convenient instrument to use. So, but I want people to know that there is another sound that should be heard, and so that's what that is. But it's always a matter of can I bring it with me or not. So folks who come to the show at the Strand and the show at the Adirondack State Theater will get something closer to probably that's what was heard in those theaters during the silent era. There might have been a combination of piano, drums, and violin or something like that. But a small theater like each of these probably had a pianist at most of the shows when films were shown. So you'll really get to hear not only the sound of the silent film era, but you'll hear what you heard in that theater, in those two theaters.
I love the juxtaposition of you're showing these classic movies, silent movies, but you're using, whether it's a great sound system or the screen, you're using modern technology to really enhance the experience.
Well, the great thing is that technology in terms of film restoration has really taken huge leaps just in the last 10 years. I mean, every few years there's more software that does better things. The restoration of the Gold Rush that was done in 2012 and put out on Blu-ray looks very good. But the new 4K digital restoration that was done over the last year or two, which is what we will be screening at the Strand, looks amazing. And so we're not adding things with AI or anything, but the idea is that to make the film look as good as it did in its initial release, and the work that's being done by archives and independent companies like mine, like my company Undercrank Productions has been producing and releasing DVDs and Blu-rays of classic silent films for the last 12 years. You can take films that maybe aren't in the best shape, but clean them up and stabilize them. And so you're able to present a silent film program where the film looks as good as it did 100 years ago, and you're hearing and experiencing exactly what people did in that space, whether you're in Schroon Lake or Tupper Lake, today.
I'm curious to know how many silent movies still exist, meaning were many of them destroyed when sound came out, or are old films being discovered all the time?
So we don't have a count of how many survive. About 10 years ago, a study was done scouring the archives of the planet, and a number was determined, and I think it's just U.S.-made silent films. This number keeps getting repeated, meaning other factions of silent film, but I think 70, I'm going to get it wrong. But what I can tell you is that stuff turns up every year. And even the survey I'm trying to remember the number on, it's just feature films made in the U.S. And then there's, you have to account for world cinema. And this is not even the short comedies and short dramas that were made by the tens of thousands or by thousands. So there is actually a lot that exists, and there is actually a lot more available on home video than you might guess. And there's more coming out every couple of months, whether it's a brand new restoration of something like a film called The Crowd that has deserved to have been restored and released ever since the last restoration was done on and released on Laserdisc, or to things like the Laurel and Hardy silent comedy shorts, or pretty much there are 2 or 3 different restorations of all the Keaton features that are now available. Like I said, things turn up all the time. An 1897 film made by Georges Méliès, the magician and filmmaker, turned up at the Library of Congress in March, called Gugus and the Automaton. It's about 40 seconds long, but a nitrate print of this turned up on a reel of stuff that had come in, and it had been lost pretty much ever since. So, so there is a lot to be found, not just on YouTube, where people have illicitly just sort of ripped things and thrown them up there, taking money out of the pockets of those of us who release these things. But if you subscribe to Kino Lorber's channel or the Criterion channel or what have you, or on Canopy and things like that, there's a lot of silent film, and more of it is either being newly restored following its availability 20 years ago, or things that have never been available on home video because for whatever reason, the 2 or 3 main companies didn't pay attention to them or were just not interested. So for instance, a few years ago, actually, I've now released 2 Blu-rays of Western silent films, 1 disc of Tom Mix films and 1 disc of films starring Tom Tyler, who, if anything, is best known for being part of the 3 Mosquitoes in the serial of Captain Marvel, but he was a cowboy star. So we'll put stuff like that out. And later this summer, a film called The Cardboard Lover starring Marion Davies, which has never been on home video, will be released by my company. We just finished a restoration. So the answer to the question, are there a lot of people who play for films? The answer is you'd be surprised at how much is actually out there.
That's amazing.
It's really fascinating because I came into this thinking we're going to talk about your performances during a movie, but it's so much more involved in the whole preservation and restoration. Thank you, of these movies. It's quite amazing. Why don't you share with us your website? Because I'm sure there's information there that people would be interested in.
Absolutely. My website is silentfilmmusic.com, and I am on socials at @Silent Film Music, all one word. My website has links to my home video label, Undercrank Productions, my podcast, the Silent Film Music Podcast, my performance schedule, information about my book, The Silent Film Universe, which was published last year, and a way to sign up for my emails, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. But it's silentfilmmusic.com.
Awesome. Well, and listener, that'll be in the show notes and on our website, a link to that as well. Is there, or can you remember a really memorable reaction an audience person had or audience member had to the experience that you create for them?
Well, they happen at almost every show. Someone will come up to me and say something. We did a show the last time we ran a Keaton film at the Strand. I had my little table selling my DVDs, and a father came up to me with his son, who I'm going to guess is maybe 9 or 10. He said, "I want you to meet the biggest Buster Keaton fan in the Adirondacks," meaning his son. So things like that happen. Or last year, there was a group of 4 or 5 people, I'm guessing in their 20s, who had come and they'd marked their calendars and canceled other plans, and they told me, "Oh no, we wouldn't miss this." There are things like that that happen. I did a show. I do a series at an art house theater on Long Island called the Cinema Arts Center. It's been around for 50 years, and you never know what film is going to have a reaction of any kind with anybody. And we showed a Mary Pickford film called Stella Maris. And I figured, well, it's a very good film. She's not a huge draw, but whatever, we showed it. And the show went well. And a woman spoke with me in the parking lot afterwards. She said, I wanted to tell you that my mother had passed a couple of months ago, and I'd just been feeling very down or blue or something. And I came to the show tonight, and it really lifted my spirits. And just the whole experience of it, and she wanted to thank me for that. And so there are things like that will happen. Or during the pandemic, I had a weekly live stream show called the Silent Comedy Watch Party, where Sundays at 3:00 Eastern, I, along with my friend Steve Massa, who I brought in virtually from his apartment, and our wives who were stage managing the show by text and keeping the whole thing going, we would show silent comedy shorts that I would accompany live on my piano from our apartment. And then Steve would introduce the films, and he and I would chat about them between the films. And all 102 episodes are still on YouTube. And Steve and I have found when we go out to other theaters, people will come up to us and say, the Silent Comedy Watch Party got me through the pandemic. When we were all locked in our houses, people would say that's how they knew it was Sunday. It was appointment television. And also we were bringing laughter to people during this difficult time. So there's always, or somebody will come up to me and my grandmother or my great aunt played the piano in a silent movie house or something like that. There isn't one story. There's a slew of them, and they're always touching and welcome. And it's as somebody said in an article about a show I did once, they said, where else can you shake hands with the soundtrack at the end of the show? So it's fun when people come up to me afterwards and tell me something that the show brought to them or some connection they had to silent movies.
Liz, I'm curious, what do you think keeps people coming back year after year at the Strand?
Right. Our audience it's larger every year. And I think it's not only the experience of seeing the film together, but the opportunity to talk about it with Ben, with our other performers, with each other, and the interest that generates. We've had folks come in costume. We've had folks for other films come with all sorts of other kinds of questions or personal relationships to the person doing the lecture. But the key is that each person has been in the arts and in the movie industry in some way, and then provides a viewpoint and just a very warm and community aspect to answering questions about the film itself.
Yeah, that's a really important aspect of the series that I think we should highlight, that each movie, this classic silent movie, but also the other movies you'll be showing, there will be somebody speaking about the film ahead of time. Talk a little bit about what that format's like.
For each of the movies, much like Ben, one of our speakers will introduce the movie, and they've selected a movie that they personally have produced or been the casting director or been somehow directly involved with. So we will have the Seagull Colony joining us to sing some excerpts from an opera that matches the Dead Man Walking movie that we're going to show. We will have a person who grew up in the summers at one of our campsites who's a producer come in and introduce her role in her movies. Each one of them has a really personal touch to it, which is what we love. So with that said, people come back not only because they know who's going to be the speaker, but they come back because it's information and feelings and crazy inside stories that you couldn't get anywhere else.
And I also think that, unlike the Cineplexes, when you enter a classic film house, whether it's the Palace or the State or the Strand, you're in a movie theater. You know that. And at a megaplex, you enter, you smell popcorn, but you go into the theater and it's a gray box with no curtain, no amenities, and cushy seats. That was the big thing.
Cup holders.
We'll give you cushy seats just like you have at home. But I think that entering the auditorium of a classic movie theater you instantly feel like I'm somewhere special. And that's something you can't have again at your house. Just the decor. I love the Art Deco, the late Deco, design that you see at the Strand. But there really is something, that impresses you when you enter the auditorium. Whereas at any, multiplex, you walk in to the theater. Oh, now where am I going to sit? But there's this, and that's the other thing that's special on top of everything that Liz is talking about is there's that atmosphere that you can't get at home or in a multiplex.
I was literally thinking the same thing right before you said it. So thank you for that. I think it's, and I think there's something special. I would just say from my personal experience, if you're camping, if you're at your camp, and a lot of places appear kind of rustic, going out to the movies one night was like a big event. I can remember. I remember we saw Star Wars, Steve. I don't know if you remember this. We were camping in Delaware.
You cannot forget the first time you saw Star Wars.
Well, yeah. No. I just remember I didn't even know what we were going to see. But the fact that we were going to a movie, and we did a lot of camping as a kid when we were kids with our parents. And it was like such a treat to be able to go do that. There's that aspect of it too. So it's great.
I will tell you that the Gold Rush is going to make you laugh a lot more than anything else that you'll see all summer. There may be, I don't really know how many comedies are really being made or released in theaters, but if you could use a good laugh, whether you come to the Gold Rush at the Strand or to Steamboat Bill Jr. at the State Theater, you're in for at least 100, 150 really good laughs.
Liz, can you give us a few highlights beyond this opening night of what we can expect from this summer's Classic Movie Monday lineup?
Yes, we have 7 films altogether. Ben's the first. We are also going to show You've Got Mail.
Oh, I love that movie.
And one of the producers from that who worked in her career directly with Nora Ephron will have many stories. She's been profiled in several books, Dee Dee Dreyer. And then we have Dead Man Walking, which will allow the Seagull Colony to come in as they have for several years now. They sing a few excerpts, so we're working in partnership to help folks understand through the movie and what they're singing, what their opera will be, Dead Man Walking. After that, we have Fatal Attraction. Risa Garcia Brayman is that. Then we have Jeremy Arnold, who was part of our original classic movie startup so long ago, doing The Quiet Man. And Jeremy is a guest host on Turner Classic Movies and has quite a bit to say about movies, the history of them, and really does a great lecture. After that, we have a movie 1776 with Fred Balzac and also Connor Williams, who's a local historian, just to give a flavor to our 250th anniversary year with that musical. Fred Balzac is one of the people who helped to start this process, who recommended Ben to us, and is active now with the community grants process at ALCA. And then our last movie is with Brian Brown. It's On the Beach. So that's something that we have all talked about that we really like. We understand it's serious, but we feel it's a great movie. And Brian has several books about the Cold War and other kinds of items like that, and quite a bit to say.
That's a very impressive lineup. That's great. That's the first time I've heard it. So I think I want to see every single one of those.
Well, I'd like to say we share what's playing, and we'll share this lineup on our Facebook page, The Strand at Schroon Lake. So, and we will have press releases and put it on different calendars and all over. But the Strand at Schroon Lake is the best place to see what we're playing each week. And that will, folks can see then, again, confirm the movie time and who's speaking.
The other 6 days of the week, you play, recent current features as well. So I think you started the summer off with The Devil Wears Prada 2. So again, listener, it'll be in our show notes page and on our website, but we'll have the link to the Strand's Facebook profile there.
Thank you.
Such a fascinating conversation. We could probably go on for another 45 minutes, But unfortunately, we have to release you back into the wild. But before we let you go, we like to ask our guests to tell us about a favorite spot in the Adirondacks. And you can't say the Strand, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But
Pitkins? Can I say Pitkins?
Yes, absolutely.
Pitkins and 9 Mile Coffee?
Yep.
It's not, beautiful, mountains or anything like that. But those are, I don't get around the Adirondacks that much. So
No, I think that's perfect for, listeners who may not be familiar. Pitkins is a restaurant that's been around actually also in Schroon Lake for many, many years. And I kind of think of it like if you are a fan of the Gilmore Girls, it's a little bit like Luke's Diner. It's delicious food. I go there every time I get my dog groomed, because actually, Liz, we go to the same dog groomer in Schroon Lake. So, yeah, highly recommended. And 9 Mile, there's no Starbucks really in the Adirondacks. So 9 Mile Coffee is a great place for a great cup of coffee. Thanks for those. Liz, over to you.
Like Ben, we love everything in beautiful downtown Schroon Lake. So there's so many things going on, but I'm going to mention what to us was a hidden gem, which is Stonebridge and Caves. It's a wonderful place to go hiking, to see the only cave in the Adirondacks, and an incredible amount of history. So I always would recommend to people, again, to look at their Facebook page. And if you're here and looking for a wonderful day visit, Stonebridge and Caves is amazing.
It's really cool. And they've got great, I don't know if it's waterfall, but they've got a lot of great water. And our cousins were up here last summer and their kids, I think they went 3 times. They loved it so much. That's a great one, Liz. Thank you for bringing that up. Well, Liz, Ben, thank you so much for sharing all this amazing information with us today. And we look forward to seeing you at the theater this summer.
Thanks. I'm really looking forward to these shows.
Great.
That's right. And Ben, as we say, see you at the movies.
Yep.
All right. That was really fun.
Yeah.
I just can't wait to go see. I want to definitely see the Gold Rush. And that's, right. This is coming out right before the 4th of July. And so, listener, if you're wondering what to do in the Adirondacks over the 4th of July, visit adktaste.com. Go to our events section. We'll definitely have the Strand movies in our events section, as well as check out the Strand's profile on Facebook for sure.
Especially in the evening, it's a great way to get out of what can sometimes be the heat. Especially if you're camping or in a house that's not air conditioned, there are certain times of the summer, and it always seems to be around July 4th, that it will just have a lot of heat and humidity and no breeze, and you're just sweltering, and it's great relief from that kind of heat.
Get away from the mosquitoes
and
too.
Get away from the mosquitoes.
Or if it's raining, it's a great option. And there aren't megaplexes up here in the Adirondacks, so these small town theaters work really hard to deliver great programming. We talked to the Indian Lake Theater a while ago. He mentioned the Palace in Lake Placid, the Adirondack Theater in Tupper Lake, the Strand in Old Forge, which is really cool and worth a pop in there. So definitely check these places out when you're in the Adirondacks. And for more Adirondack insights, tips, and recommendations, visit us at adktaste.com. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter so you can get the latest news and insights and tips delivered in your inbox once a week. And Steve, what should people do if they have a question or comment?
Oh, we love your questions and comments. So feel free to send them. You can do so info@adktaste.com, and we will gladly listen to them, read them, however you send it. We'll respond.
We will, and we may even read your question on the podcast. Speaking of the podcast that you're listening to, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Rate and review us if you liked us. That helps other people discover our podcast. And we just appreciate it. And with that, I don't think we have anything left to say, Steve.
In the theme of our today's show, we shall remain silent.
All right, listener, take care. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you out there.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.